the big thing, man, is like your gut is your immune system, right? And if you don't have good gut health, you are not going to have a properly functioning immune system. They just are linked. The original statistic was 80% of your immune system lives in the gut. I think it's actually more than that.
Welcome to the Full Fueled Podcast. Your hosts, Matt Tag and
Alfred Alessi.
What's up, bro?
What's up, brother?
What's going on, man?
Good to be back, man.
It's good to be back.
I like this room, it's like something, it's a little romantic.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the ambiance is really, I feel like I'm in my living room.
Yeah.
Just with you.
Yeah,
It's good. It's a good feeling.
I'm just kidding. Water.
Water. We got water. Sponsored as always by Nutritious and Alessi Functional Health.
Yep.
Love it. Let's dig right in, man.
Let's go, man. Yeah, so I think we left off last time kind of preambling what we're going to talk about today. Love to get into like some gut health topics, man, and kind of why that's so important for people.
Yeah.
I think it's been a buzzword for a while now.
Yeah.
People hear gut health, microbiome, like take probiotics, like all that, but there's a lot of misinformation too, right? So unpacking a little bit of that, man, and kind of I think simplifying it is the biggest thing, you know, because people get lost in the info, and then that causes decision fatigue or like freeze, where people are like, I was gonna do this, but now I'm just gonna keep living my life the way I was doing it. Like
Things
I'm
just
good.
got way too
I'm
confusing.
good on that. Yeah. Things got out of hand.
Yeah.
So you know the big thing, man, is like your gut is your immune system, right? If you don't have good gut health, you are not going to have a properly functioning immune system. It's just that they just are linked. The original statistic was 80% of your immune system lives in the gut. I think it's actually more than that. I think they're showing it's like closer to like probably like 90%. We have this gut-associated lymphoid tissue called the GALT. We have your microbiome, which is comprised of millions of colonies of bacteria. And most people hear that and they're like, bacteria? You have bacteria in my gut? It's like, yes, you should. Right? They're good guys, though, right? And you should have like small amounts of some bad bacteria too.
Yeah.
They kind of feed off of each other, and that allows your body to basically be like ready for invaders. You know what I mean? So your body's always kind of like on the defense, if you will. But I mean, let me ask you this: what are some of the biggest things you hear, or I guess questions around like gut health that the modern person probably has no idea?
Yeah, that's me. You dive into the deep research, you know, as you should from a doctor standpoint, and then it's like me that, hey, I want to feel better on a day-to-day basis. Like I want to operate at a very, very high level. And, you know, I'm working with a few clients right now that I was like, get into the momentum of like exercising, because exercise obviously is the propeller. I think it's that's what, you know, kicks things in gear.
Yeah.
But the second thing, but really the first thing you focus on, and they're like simultaneously, is then the gut. It's not even necessarily like your focus of your diet, but you have to have an understanding of like what is going on that creates a feeling, right? And the gut produces all the feeling, right? The gut-brain alignment, which I'm sure we'll tap into a little bit later.
Yeah.
But, you know, for me, it's just the propeller is just like that activation of movement. And then what then is the gut? Like, what is it? And you explained it at a very rudimentary level too, as far as what is comprised, and then specifically the gut microbiome.
Yeah. And
then, you know, as Jim Quick says, your gut is technically your first brain. Like that's what creates all the emotion in your body. Like that's going to dictate how you feel that day. And so like, if your gut's like off, you're probably going to feel a little crummy that day. And then your attitude probably is, you know, I mean, you can dictate that and maneuver that a little bit, but like your attitude's probably going to be like, man, I'm not feeling it today.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you can't even like verbalize it. You just, something's off.
Yeah.
You know what it is. And I'm glad you said that, the gut-brain axis, because it's a two-way street, right? It's
right.
not just like one influences the other. It's back and forth. So there's like this synergy. You know, a lot of your positive neurotransmitters are produced in the gut, like serotonin, dopamine, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Produced by the colonies of bacteria, right? So they digest food, they break down food, and they use metabolites to then create those hormones or those neurotransmitters. Vice versa, you know, and I see this a lot with patients who come in with really high stress, right? grinding 9 to 5. They got kids at home, and their stress levels are just 10 all
super
the
high
time.
cortisol levels. Yeah.
And they're like, why do I have diarrhea all the time? Why do I have this like feeling of like an uneasy feeling in their gut all the time? And it's, you know, a traditional doctor is going to just say, oh, you have IBS, take this medication. It's like, well, what's causing that, right? IBS is like a psychosomatic thing. It's basically your stress levels and your body being in this elevated stress state for so long disrupts the gut, right? And that's what leads to those, like, I'm about to crap my pants, I'm so nervous kind of feeling, you know what I mean? But you can't just slap medicine on top of that because you're not really fixing the problem. So that's where a lot of what I do is like a lot of like de-stressing and, you know, focusing on balancing the adrenals and the hormones and stuff like that. But the biggest thing with that, and I think what most people don't realize is there's a condition called leaky gut. And I'd say like 20 years ago was like not even talked about. Maybe there were some like natural doctors.
Before you segue completely into that, because I know we're going to be going down that rabbit trail, there is like one of the big things for me, and maybe kind of gross, but like a quick measuring tool. You were saying, hey, why do I have diarrhea? That is like something you should be measuring, right? The Bristol chart, it shows you what your poop should look like, right? I love that chart. And so when you quick Google search, right? Yeah. And what your urine should look like in that color variation of like what a healthy potentially gut looks like. Yeah. Now it is going to vary day to day because there's certain things that you're going to eat, but at the same consistently, if you measured something in a week time frame, utilize that as a guide because that's a big guide. But then, all right, now like going into the leaky gut, well, you know, that's a measuring tool. Now, how do you fix something like that with high stress?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because like a lot of people, what they think is normal is not normal.
Yeah,
like what's normal? I just have diarrhea every day, 10 times a day for the last
just
20 years.
Pods.
I had a patient like that, man. It was just like that for him. That was normal.
Yeah,
and I was like, dude, like I'm sorry that you've been led astray. Like I felt terrible, man, because like the mainstream doctors had kind of led him down the wrong path. You know what I mean?
Oh, all right. Yeah, we can cut that out. We can keep going. We can throw some stuff.
Thanks, guys.
Running up there. Thank you.
Yeah, and like so the mainstream doctors had basically led this guy down the path of like, oh, that's just your gut. Like here they put him on all kinds of like acid blocking like gut stomach things. Yeah. And so I think maybe let's break down real quick. I can do just this is like what I tell my patients how your gut works or how it works, right? Obviously you eat food. Most people don't chew their food enough, right? You have salivary amylase is an enzyme that's in your saliva that is meant to break down proteins and kind of pre-digest them so that when they hit the gut, they're ready to go. I'm culprit of this too. I just kind of just shovel it in, bro, and then eat real. Why do I feel so full? It's because you didn't actually chew your food. Yeah. Right. So chewing your food, making sure that you're getting those enzymes to break down those molecules. Then when it gets to the stomach, right? The stomach.
How many times should you be chewing? I heard 14 to 16 times. I think that might even be a fast pace.
Yeah, I think it's honestly more of like a time. Like I'd say like 30 seconds to a minute is like how long you should like chew something. Wow. It's a long time. Yeah, yeah. And it's like when you tell people that, they're like, what? Like, I would be eating for an hour, which is kind of like how our ancestors used to eat, right? They weren't like rushing to go to work. They weren't rushing somewhere. They just had a kill. They killed a deer or something. They cooked it and it was like, let's go. Yeah. They sat around the fire for hours and just ate. You know what I mean? And that's like how it's meant to be. It's how we're supposed to really like get in with that moment of eating
food,
man.
Right? It's such a good dopamine release when you can be like kind of one with your food,
family, and like that whole environment, man. Right. Yeah, but nowadays it's TV's on. We're just shoveling it in to get to the next thing, get to work. That's right. You know, standing up eating as we're like driving. Or right. Like so we've gotten away from that because that's the first step, man. Then when it gets to your stomach, which really technically isn't even the gut, right? Your stomach is a separate entity before your gut. Right. You should have the hydrochloric acid, which is going to break down that food even further, right? Like get it ready. That makes it more of like a liquid that when it goes into the small intestine, which is more of a sterile environment, really. Yeah. You don't have a ton of bacteria in your small intestine. It's more of like a transfer tube to get you to the large intestine where a lot of that absorption happens. Yeah. Large intestine is where your colonies of microbiota is higher.
Food is still processing through there. Like it's a filtration system in your small intestine of extracting certain things before it gets to your gut.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And then the large intestine is where you're going to have a lot of that absorption, right?
Okay.
It's also where people get a lot of their issues because like things like Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis happen in the large intestine. Because a lot of times people have so many toxins in the food that your body's not absorbing and they're just hanging out there.
Yeah.
And it creates inflammation. It creates this kind of stress on that tissue. And then obviously you excrete the food, right? But like the microbiome should be more heavily colonized in the large intestine. Now there's something called SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. This is something I see a lot where, you know, people they're not fully absorbing that food in the large intestine and it backtracks a little bit into the small intestine. And then you get an overgrowth, right? That's what the word means, SIBO, an overgrowth of bacteria in your small intestine.
Got it.
It can look like bloating, right? A couple hours after a meal, you get like a serious bloating, like indigestion feeling. And I always like to differentiate the two. This is actually on the topic we're going to talk about today, so I'll just get into it. SIBO, or like gut bloating versus like stomach bloating, right? So if you eat something and like right away or like within like 10, 15 minutes you're getting bloating, that's more of like a stomach acid problem, like, right? Like the first area that it goes to is not breaking it down. That food's starting to like ferment and create gas and stuff like that. Versus 2 hours later, I have bloating, right? So I always ask that question. It's like, when does the bloating happen? Right after or later from the meal? Even 2 or 3 hours, right? Depends on person's transit time. But if that food's just sitting in the small intestine and there's an overgrowth of bacteria and it's creating that kind of like fermenting, think of just like something sitting, right?
Right.
Starts stinking and kind of decaying. That's what's happening inside your body, right? So I know, a little personal, we were talking earlier about like, hey, I eat something and then usually like pretty soon I'm going to the bathroom.
Right after.
That's good, man. That means your body's like working. It's pushing things out. It's like, all right, we got some new stuff in here. Let's get the other stuff out. You know, as opposed to people who are like, I poop like every 3 days. Like, dude, you got stuff backing up in there, right? And what is happening with that? Your body's going to start reabsorbing some of that, right? And that's when you get some issues.
That's like that's when inflammation occurs in the body. That's when your body is like, it's almost an elongated version of septic.
In a way,
you know,
it's like a slow drip.
It's like a slow drip. That's kind of disgusting to think about when you don't even realize it, right? It's like you're backed up. It's good to be processing through those, and then again, check out the Bristol chart because you should be measuring. You should be taking a peek at your poop. And dude, is it just a mud pie? Is it like a complete brick coming out? That's not good either. You want it a little bit more softer in nature, allowing it, but held together. Right?
Like a solid piece that's like sausage shaped. I mean, we can get into it. Well, just look at the chart. I'm not going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about poop shapes here, right? As much as that would be funny.
But leaky gut's a big thing because that just number one, it like is more of an anti-inflammatory for the body. It just naturally. It's inflaming the body,
right?
And you're not feeling good. Like, I mean, you're like, something's off. But a lot of people push through that. And what's crazy about it is like you're healthier. You still had leaky gut. So you can be outward. Thinking that you're super healthy.
That's right.
And then you're like, man, something's off. And it was your gut telling you ultimately. And then you have a really cool process that you went through in order to cure yours. Share that story.
So I mean, mine was more of a stress-related thing. It was just high levels of stress that was constant, kind of like IBS symptoms, and I was just putting stress on my gut to the point that, so essentially what leaky gut is, I use the analogy of kind of like a fence, right? Like think of like a fence with like vertical bars around a playground or something, and you know, obviously a human can't get through it. A soccer ball can't get through it. But a tennis ball, you throw it, it'll go through. Right? So that's what your gut should be like. It should be selectively permeable is the term, right? It should allow certain things in.
Like no way.
Small chains of amino acids, right? Not full proteins. Micronutrients, small macronutrients like fats and carbohydrates. But it shouldn't let big undigested proteins through, right? Like the soccer ball or like a person running at that gate. Now, leaky gut is when, say, like those bars get stretched apart, right? And they're open. Now the bigger things are getting through. And that's because of inflammation, damage, whether that's from toxins, right? Things that are sprayed on the food, kind of like we talked about, I think, in episode 1, right? Like the glyphosates and those pesticides. Very inflammatory on the gut. Food sensitivities, right? If someone has like an inborn kind of like sensitivity to eggs or dairy or something like that, will inflame the gut as well.
Yeah.
And the way the gut, inflammation does is damage, right? The same way you get a cut, it turns red and it hurts, it swells up. Same thing happens with our gut, but it breaks down those tight junctions between the cells.
Gotcha.
And that's like opening that gate or that fence. Now people are breaking through, right? Or larger things are passing through into the blood.
Okay.
What happens is when those larger molecules pass into the bloodstream, the body has to do something with that, right?
Yeah.
Our body sees that as an invader, right? And so there's this thing called molecular mimicry, where basically your body sees, say, like an undigested protein, similar structure and makeup to thyroid tissue, right?
Okay.
So your body is attacking that.
Yeah.
Now it starts attacking your thyroid because they look the same. Your body's going to always just go towards what it thinks is a foreign invader. That's kind of what happened to me. Basically, I was developing antibodies against my own thyroid. So I had like an autoimmune thyroid condition called Hashimoto's. What I did was started taking a bunch of thyroid stuff, thinking like, oh, that's going to be the solve. It wasn't, because it was coming from the gut issue, right?
Okay.
So it's like we got to like dig deep, man, to get to the root cause of the problem.
Yeah.
A lot of times it is autoimmune things are gut related, right?
Okay.
It's like, what's the first thing is what we put into our body, right? That's like always the first question that should be asked.
Yeah.
That is never asked.
Yeah.
Your mainstream primary care doctors, right? Like,
Yeah, right.
like, oh, I have this rheumatoid arthritis. Oh, here's some medicine for you. Or let's get you on this protocol of
That's right.
managing your symptoms. Versus, no, why do you have rheumatoid arthritis? Why is your body attacking its synovial tissue in the joints, right? On a broad scale.
Yeah.
That's the question I ask. It's like, why? Dig it down.
Exactly.
Why? Dig it down. Why? And keep going until you find the culprit, which a lot of times is some kind of gut-related issue,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. I didn't realize that the gut is like almost that, it still goes to the largest small intestine, gets to the gut, but that's where the dispersion of the micronutrients happens kind of to the rest of the body, into the cell, that then goes through your circulatory system and is essentially feeding the rest of the body, right?
Yeah, it's like you said earlier, it's kind of like the filter, or like that selective permeability concept is like it picks and chooses what should get through, right? A healthy gut's going to allow what needs to get through, nutrients, smaller amino acids, micronutrients, all that stuff, and not the bigger undigested things that it's going to then excrete, right?
Yeah.
And that's when everything's kind of working in synergy.
So then I know it probably varies, maybe a little bit across the board in terms of a client that comes into your office. Hey, like you diagnose them, they have leaky gut. You then are asking the why. But then what are 3 things that you essentially do maybe on the front side of that as protocol to say, hey, these are the next steps in order of what we're going to, because it could be stress. It might actually not be either. It might be actually their eating patterns. What are those maybe top 3 things?
Yeah. So depending on what the cause is, I always like to have some definitive proof, like I can make a hypothesis or like a diagnosis based on their symptoms. Yeah. But I'm going to run some labs to make sure, right? So there's a lab I use specifically for leaky gut. It's basically testing for anti-zonulin, which zonulin is the protein that holds those cells together, the tight junctions they're called. If you have a lot of an anti-zonulin, high anti-zonulin score, it means that zonulin's being broken down, that barrier is being more permeable, right? So allowing things to get in, that is leaky gut. Yeah. Right? So I'd like to see something like that first, maybe a stool test if their symptoms are bad enough. And then a food sensitivity test is huge, because that's like, hey, how do we get rid of the bad guys that are causing this? So when it comes to doing what we call like a heal and seal, right? Yeah. Heal the gut and seal those tight junctions, you got to get rid of the bad guys first. So that's right. If it's eggs, we gotta cut eggs completely. Doesn't mean you can never have eggs in the future, right? We can heal it and get your body back to being able to process those.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you can heal from food sensitivities. It's not like a food allergy.
We just did that with my girls, actually.
Cool.
Yeah, so we had a gluten allergy. There was just a couple things that we wanted to take a look at, but I didn't realize that you can actually remove those food sensitivities.
Yeah, it takes time, right?
Yeah.
It's and like diligence, right? Yeah. So you're probably going to be avoiding for 6 months to a year, Yeah, 6 months is doable for sure. I've done that, but usually it's like, hey, let's just stay off these for a year, and you rerun that food sensitivity test.
Oh, okay.
And then if the score should be going down, right? Basically your body should be not letting those things into the blood anymore. Yeah. Right. So yeah, honestly, and it's cool how we're like kind of organically tracking through some of the points I wanted to talk about. But the biggest thing, man, is taking the stress off the gut to let it heal.
Yeah.
So most patients come in with a leaky gut or some kind of dysbiosis. We're going to do like a fasting kind of protocol. Some fasting mixed in with like smoothies as opposed to full meals, right? So we'll do like shakes and stuff like that because it's easier on your gut, right? It's already kind of pre-digested. It's not putting stress on the gut to have to break that food down, but you can still get the nutrients you need, right? And it's all good stuff. A lot of herbs, a lot of enzymes and detox kind of factors to help the body maintain while it's healing, you know, and I'd say it takes a good 3 to 6 months for someone to really like heal that up. Think of it like an injury, bro, but it's an injury that's probably been going on for a long time.
Yeah, right.
It's assault after assault after assault, and it depends on the person and the severity of their symptoms and where they're at. But
huge.
Yeah.
I think that from what you were saying too, and that was something I would like to build on in terms of like phytonutrients, but that was when I was conceptualizing even nutritious of how can it be most optimal but less invasive on the body? Yeah. Right? And so how do you get something a little bit more quick and efficient where it's like these ultra processed foods or something that you're putting in your body over and over and over again? I mean, I come from a family that loves snacking. Yeah. Right? And so you're putting all these like foreign starches in there, all these glutens. 2 of my daughters have gluten allergies that we found out that then, or, you know, that naturally is going to impact your gut like over time. Right. Yeah. Because we got some blood work done, but one of the big things, even for me, you say going into a fasted state, that's been huge for me in protecting my gut, healing that up over time is going into a fasted state and then coming out of my fast with less evasive type micronutrients. You know, I still put some micronutrients in my body coming out of a fast, but I want to put, you know, some phytonutrients, but something that allows me to ease my way out of that fast and then into a more macronutrient, you know, high protein dense state. So talk about like phytonutrients too, in terms of that healing, like your gut, like what are some of the things that you're putting in the smoothies?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest, you know, you want to avoid like a lot of sugars and processed stuff. So I have a few different recipes that I will give out to my patients. Biggest one, man, is things like blueberries, right? They have a ton of antioxidants and phytonutrients that are like antioxidant, right? They're going to scavenge up those free radicals that are causing damage and assault on the body. So things like that. I use a lot of detox shakes that I use from a couple different brands, but it's basically a formula. I only use good quality stuff too. I'm not just grabbing something off Amazon.
Right.
You know, formulated to be easy, but also give your body what it needs to continue while on this kind of process. Or, you know, because the biggest thing with like fasting and being on like a smoothie diet is like people feel kind of crappy. Yeah. You know, you're going to be a little bit hungry, but if you're getting stuff into your body that allows you to keep moving, right? All the vitamins, minerals, and everything like that.
And to say something about that, you say a little bit hungry. That's something that I've been doing for a couple of years now is like not eating the whole plate, right? Yeah. And I was watching this documentary on these blue zones, Living to 100, and this guy like went and studied blue zones. And in Japan, I believe it was a small island. I don't remember the exact name, but they had a motto of 80% full. Stop at 80%.
Love that.
And so it's okay to be a little bit hungry. That's one of those things is like American culture is like eat till you're to the brim, right? Yeah. Which puts a lot of stress on your gut.
That's right.
Because it's not like your body's only meant for a certain amount, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that, like, to saying that's okay to be a little hungry.
Yeah. Like, I am usually a little bit hungry all the time.
All the time, you know,
like,
it's fine.
I'm not dead. I'm thriving.
Exactly. I'm not hangry, but I'm also like right now, I could eat something. I definitely could eat something right now. I'm actually probably, I could probably smash it.
And a lot of that's like, am I hungry or am I just bored?
That's right.
And when we're bored and there's nothing to do, like we kind of like defer to like, let's eat.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's like part of the culture,
safety,
man. Yeah. Safety. Right. Like when am I going to have my next meal? I should just eat now because I don't know. It's okay to be a little hungry. I love that. And that's the whole thing with fasting, which we're going to actually get into next episode.
Yeah.
Dig in, because I know you do fasting. I fast almost daily.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you that reset. It's like a gut reset. You know what I mean? You're imagine if you just were doing bicep curls all day long. You're just curling.
Stressing.
Your biceps are going to tear. You're not going to be able to, right?
Yeah.
Gut needs a break too, right? It's got muscle tissue. It has tissue that needs to rest, right? If it's always working and there's energy being put into that system to break down food all day long, of course it's going to be stressed, and of course you're going to have issues, right?
Yeah.
It needs to take a break. So fasting is a great way to kind of hit a reset button, let your body kind of clear out the bad stuff, like, hey, let's get rid of this so we can be ready for the next meal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a good example. And as we wrap up this episode of, like, we only visibly can see our external, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, if we're friggin' racking squat, nonstop working it out, nonstop doing bicep curls, like, we'd never leave the gym. Like, that's what you're essentially doing your body when you're eating 4 to 5 times a day. And by eating 4 to 5 times a day, you don't think, oh, well, my major meal groups are breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Well, all those snacks you put in between, still making your gut work out, all these things of, like, no, actually, until you get to the point of bed, you're still making. And then when you go to sleep, you're probably not getting the most optimized sleep, which that's going to be another episode that we're going to be talking about sleep.
Yeah.
Where
the whole season,
you actually want to fast, 3, 4, maybe even 5 hours before you fall asleep.
Yep.
To get the most optimized sleep, so that your gut is, like, not overworked before you go into a nocturnal state or a sleeping state.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm glad you brought up the snacks, right? Because, like, that's a big thing. Is people are like, well, before people are always snacking, right? If they can get their hands on stuff. I've been using the Nutritious with my patients who are doing some kind of a diet modification.
Yeah.
And they ask about what are the snacking options, and most people turn to nuts and stuff like that, which, again, like, it's a harder food that your body has to process and break down. So I've been using the packs, the
nutritious pouches,
because it's a smoothie, but it's filled with great stuff, right?
Yeah.
The antioxidants. You got the mushrooms, which are good for gut, brain, all of that, everything we just talked about, and it gets people through that midday whatever that they need to get to their next meal.
But then also, like, keeping you a little bit hungry, right? You're still a little, and when you're also hungry, you work better, right? You're more optimized.
Yeah.
So it's like a big thing of just almost keeping in mind. I love that, Japanese say 80% full.
Yeah.
Like 80%. You don't need to max yourself out.
Well, I would challenge anyone to go eat a huge bacon, eggs, toast breakfast, and then go try to focus on your work. Or fast in the morning, maybe have a little coffee, maybe have just water with some lemon or some salt in it, and work. Where's your brain going to be working better? It's when you're fasting.
That's right.
Because now most of your energy can go up there. You got blood flow to the brain. I like the coffee. It's like a nice little hack to get you to the fast as well.
Yeah, it's a nootropic.
Yeah, you're not having to divert as much energy to processing that massive breakfast you just ate.
Cool.
Yeah.
Dude, it's phenomenal.
Good
Love
stuff,
it.
Yeah.
Really quality stuff. I think a lot of takeaways there too.
Yeah.
And then just you giving a lot of basic understanding of what things look like. I think that was huge. What are we talking about next episode?
Next episode, we're going to dig in a little bit more to fasting. I think kind of like how to do it, how to start for people who are maybe a little timid or scared, and then
super pumped.
Yeah, and some of the benefits.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, man. Well, we out at full field. Live life full field. Let's get it, baby.